Hello! It's so nice to see you today. My name is Sally, and this is my Flosstube channel, Sally Stitches And. Sally Stitches And is mostly focused on cross stitch, but occasionally I like to bring my other hobbies in too. I like to quilt, I like to collect vintage kitchen items and Pyrex, and I like to knit and other things. The and changes every week. This week, however, I'm very excited because in exactly 7 days, I will be out of state in Ohio at StitchCon Weekend A, and I'm very excited. This is my first time going. So I thought today Sally Stitches and gets ready for StitchCon. I have some ideas for some things I'd like to pack, and I am very, very excited. But first, let's go ahead and get into some of the cross stitch. I have a finish, and I want to show it to you. So if you've followed my channel before, you know that I was working on this piece this month. This is a very old work in progress, or WIP, that I've had for a while, and the pattern is called Under the Sea by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and I stitched this from a kit I purchased from them, and so this is stitched on 28 count Picture This Plus fabric in the color Nessie, using DMC floss. Classic Color works for a couple of these variegated colors like this pink and this lighter green. And then also a little bit of Petite Treasure braid, which you can kind of see in these little pearls. There's some more over here. And then the goggles of the scuba divers. So this was a stitch along not even last year, but the year before, that was hosted by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And I started when the stitch along started, but then I got very behind and then I just dropped it. That's why sometimes I think of stitch alongs as being like start alongs. So what I did though is, because this month was the month of May, and because this is like a nautical, like mermaid themed pattern, I decided to focus on this project and this project only as something that I could call my Mer-May project. And I finished it in time. Believe it or not, even though it sat kind of like idly for a whole year, I finished the majority of this in 2 solid weekends of stitching. I had this first part done already, like with this coral reef and the treasure chest and the bottom border. But then earlier this month for Mother's Day, I went and I visited my mom, and we had a crafting weekend, and I managed to add these dolphins and all this stuff up here. And then I kept working on it, and then in Memorial Day weekend, I had gotten this whole corner up and this border, and I was like, I knew I was going to be done with it very soon. And so I pushed through, and on Memorial Day, I finished it. I'm very excited. I love it when I finish something. It's like so fresh, full of possibilities. So I measured the piece, and the finished dimensions are about 8.5 inches wide and 11.5 inches tall. And so I thought, oh wow, that's really easy, because if you add 1.5 inches to each of those numbers, you get 10 inches by 13 inches. And that seems like that's a pretty common picture frame size, right? Well, I was wrong. 10 by 13 is not a very common size that I can just go to the craft store and buy a frame for. You can get 11 by 14s, which I am considering because it's pretty close. That would make it about like 1.25 inch margins on each side of the stitching. But I really wanted 10 by 13. And so I'm kind of thinking about it, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But it's going to wait. I usually with my Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery pieces, I do like to frame them. You can actually see behind me, this is one that I framed a couple years ago. That's Welcome to Pumpkinville, also by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And then this is another one. This is a different kind of finish. I made it into a banner. So there's a stick supporting the top of it. And, so that's a possibility too. So I'm still gonna just kind of let it percolate. I have another piece though that I found recently. And let me backtrack a little bit. So recently, I have been working on organizing, and I worked specifically on kind of consolidating and organizing my cross-stitch stuff. If you want all the nitty-gritty details, there's a video I made a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know if you've ever read the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. It's a children's book. But the premise is, if you give a mouse a cookie, then the mouse wants something else and something else and something else. And then next thing you know, the mouse owns your house or something. But what I was thinking was, if you start organizing a little part of your house, then the next thing you know, you want to organize a little more and a little more and a little more. And that is something I've been working on. So I've joked before that our basement, which we mostly use for storage here, is kind of also like kind of a bit of a craft dungeon. We use it for a lot of things. We have a lot of storage. We keep some of our tools and supplies there. Our cat has a space down there. I have a lot of my yarn for knitting and other things. And so my husband has really been looking for a place where he can kind of spread out his hobby stuff. Specifically, he really enjoys to play video games using virtual reality headsets. And that's something that he's currently doing in our family room, but the rest of the family's in that room and it's kind of a tight space. And so what I've been working on is kind of just decluttering the basement and trying to make some room so that he can have a setup there that kind of gives him like his own space away from the family. Not that he like wants to avoid the family, but I think that he needs a little bit of respite time too. For some background, I have two kids. They're both kind of about teenage age. My son Nathan, who's younger, is just finishing elementary school, and he is autistic, and he is kind of, I would say non-speaking. A lot of times people say non-verbal, but he's very verbal. He just doesn't speak words. And so he requires a lot of care, and that is my primary job. I do have another job as a tour guide with the Alden Bedow Home and Studio here in my town of Midland, but my primary job is taking care of Nathan. And so I've actually been doing a lot of thinking about that. I think that respite is very important if you have a disabled family member, that you're the primary caregiver. And I get a lot of my respite by doing my stitching and my crafts and going on retreats. I've been very fortunate to go on maybe 2 or 3 a year, which is wonderful. And I want my husband to have that too. And so that is a long way of saying that I organized my basement a little bit and I found some more cross stitch stuff. And I was happy because I had a new organization system and I was able to kind of just merge it right in. But I got to show you this one thing I found because I forgot about it. Ta-da! I have a whole nother cross stitch that I've finished. This is also by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and whoopsie. Sorry, let's try that again. I'm using a cutting board as a backing board, and it's kind of heavy. I need to come up with something else. But this piece is called the National Park's Birthday. And you might notice from the top that there are dates, and that's because this was released back in 2016 as like a centennial celebration for the American National Park Service. And I stitched it back then. It's really pretty. I like all the pinks. I like that kind of slate blue color. It's kind of gray, and all the different seasons there. But I never finished it, like FFO'd it, finally finished off. And so it's just been in my basement. Actually, I had it with my whips. Now, there's a reason I didn't finish it, and that reason is that after this pattern was released, the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery released a second pattern that's a companion, and it's called Greetings from National Parks. And I have that started, but it's been on a very, very, very long time out because I made a huge mistake. I started it in the wrong spot. I had the fabric oriented the wrong direction, and so I have a really tight space on one side. I think I could still do it, and it would be like about an inch margin on one side, but I can't decide if I want to do that or if I want to just start over. And so I've been kind of mulling that over. But the more I think about how I like to use cross stitch, how I like to use it particularly in like decorating and making like fun displays that change through the seasons, the more I'm thinking that I'm ready to go ahead and frame this right now. And I originally thought that I would go ahead and just get a photo frame. And this is another kind of unusual size. I measured this and I'm going to double check it, but I believe that this is about 8 inches tall and 7.5 inches wide. So another piece that is like kind of a weird size for a frame. I think that I could probably do that one in an 8x10 style frame. But what I'm really thinking I might want to do is I might want to look around for like a presentation board to put it on instead. Kind of like the display board I recently showed in my last video where it's like on a little stand and I have it displayed in my dining room. Because when I think national parks, I think of like summertime and camping and fun, and I could totally see including this as part of my camping stuff. So stay tuned. I'm gonna do some more thinking. And I'm gonna get that other piece out and I'm gonna finish it too, but that might not be this year. So, sorry, I had to stop the video for a second because I had a little tickle in my throat. I'm getting over like an allergy explosion. We had so much pollen this year in Michigan, and so I am still kind of got a little raspy throat thing happening. But I was watching some other Flosstube channels, and I have a friend, her name is Sarah, and her channel is called Sarah's Stitchery. And she posted something this week that reminded me that I have a third item that I still have not FFO'd, finally finished off. And this is something that Sarah talked about in her video. She's very, very close to finishing. I have another friend, Allison, who is AllieCat13 on Instagram. She doesn't have a Flosstube channel, but she's also working on this pattern. And I'm thinking, this is the time for me to finish it. And here it is. This pattern is called Huckleberry Farm, and it is by The Blue Flower, which is a designer that I did not know about until my friend Sarah introduced me to her. Let me get a little closer so that you can see. Isn't that beautiful? So one thing I really liked about this piece was the yellow house on the top, because my mom's house in St. Ignace is also yellow, although it is a different shape than that. And that was something that drew me to this pattern. The other thing is these beautiful berries, which are made out of like 3 different floss colors that are also kind of variegated, were very fun to stitch. So I started this back in 2022. Actually, I bought the kit for it from, there was a retreat that I actually met Sarah and Allison at, and that was the Steel City Stitchers 2022 retreat. And that was my first retreat. And so I always kind of associate this with my first, special thing that I did with, stitching friends. And the fabric I chose for this is by Fabrics by Stephanie. And it is a 40 count fabric, and it's called Jamie's Kilt. And there's a lot of beautiful like purples and greens in that. I have not seen Outlander, and it's been a hot minute since I've read the books, but that's based on like Jamie Fraser from the Outlander series. And it's just a really, really beautiful pattern. I feel like the stitches really kind of glow and pop. When I went to that retreat, they had invited a needlework shop called the Crafty U there, and the Crafty U had brought a lot of sample pieces, and the sample they had for this Huckleberry Farm was featured on this very same fabric. And so I asked if they had that fabric there, and they did, and they cut it for me exactly to size like that I needed. And I don't remember for sure, and so this might just be in my mind, but I think that one of my other friends, and maybe it was even Allison, ended up picking up the second half. And so if she's using that for this particular piece, that's kind of fun. It's like they're sister pieces. Isn't it cool? So I finished stitching this about a year ago, and then I went ahead and I laced it to a piece of mat board, as is my usual, finishing thing, because my intent was to put this in a frame. And then I tucked it away, and I didn't get it into a frame. And that's because frames are kind of expensive, and they can be daunting if you're not used to it. I like to buy my frames from a company that's based in Ohio. It's called AmericanFrame.com, and they sell frame kits. And so you pick out a frame online, and they'll send the frame, the mat, the glazing, which is like the clear protective coating. For them, they use acrylic. A lot of people use glass for glazing. I actually kind of like that they use acrylic because it makes the pieces lighter on the wall, and I don't have to worry so much about someone breaking them, in a chaotic moment. My son, I frequently call him Hurricane Nathan because he can kind of run through the house like a whirlwind. And so I'm really glad I don't have to worry about my pieces getting damaged by broken glass. So all of these things you measure, and then you send the measurements to them, and then they fabricate it and they'll ship it to you. And it's very easy to pop the piece right into the frame and close it up. So I went ahead and I ordered a new frame yesterday, and I'll do like a little video where I'll kind of show you the process, just so you can see it. I'll just redo my order, but I'm very excited because I think this is a special piece that deserves to have a beautiful custom frame for it, and that it's special to me because it reminds me of my friendships with Sarah and with Allison, and because I spent a lot of time working on it. It's small, like this piece is about 12.5 by 13 finished, but it's on 40 count fabric, and so like 20 stitches per inch because I did it over 2. There's a lot of stitches. I don't usually stitch pieces this big, and so because of the amount of work that went into this too, I also think that it justifies a fancy frame. So much as I would love to do a fancy frame for Under the Sea, I really do think that I'm gonna save it for this special piece, and then I'll decide about Under the Sea if I go custom or not. So anyway, I am really excited to get all my stuff ready for StitchCon. So a little later in this video, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you along with me while I start packing the projects that I wanna take, and I think it'll be really fun. It's exciting to kind of think about the things that I'm gonna really enjoy doing while I'm at the retreat. So, but before I do that, let me quickly show you where I'm gonna hang this piece that I just showed you, and when I show you how to order a frame. Do you know, funnily enough, I booted up the computer and I checked my email, and I got the shipping notification from the frame that I ordered. So that's exciting. It might come like tomorrow, believe it or not. So I'm still gonna walk you through how I ordered this, and then if you guys ever want to order a frame, I will show you how I put them together too. They are really easy. And this is excellent if you don't have a frame shop local to you. And I live in kind of a small community that really doesn't. So first off, I chose a white wooden frame for this because the gallery wall in my bedroom where I plan to hang this Huckleberry Farm piece has 2 pieces that have white frames. So I chose the frame to match. When you choose a frame, you want to make sure that the frame has a large rise, and that is this area that's like the thickness of the frame. And the reason you want that is because you have a lot of stuff that's going to go into this frame. You have a thick piece of art with your cross stitch, and then the mounting board, the mat, the glazing, you know. So I really recommend, if you do this, that you pick a frame that has close to about 1 inch of rise. So this is the frame I chose, and you can see the rise is just under 1 inch, and that should be good. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. So when you get to this point, you can just go ahead and customize the frame by clicking this button, and it'll take you into the customization thing. And I'm gonna do this just so it's not too wide. So the first thing it's gonna ask is if you want to preview your image in the customization, and I do, because I like having that together. And so, oh, I lost my button. Where's the button? Okay, there it is. So I guess it has to be big. And then the next thing you're gonna do is you're going to do the art size. So my piece is 13 inches wide, and it is 12.5 inches tall. And I urge you, measure this like more than once, because they're gonna cut this so that it fits. So measure. So now I'm gonna go ahead and upload the photo to the viewer. And I have the photo just saved right on the desktop. So let's grab it. There we go. Let's upload it. And once it's uploaded, it'll be on this preview right here. There it is. So this is the preview of my frame. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna pick what kind of mat we want. And you can go with no mat at all, or a single mat or a double mat. So when I chose mine, I chose a single mat. And then the next thing we can do is we can choose a color. So I wanted to have a color that coordinated with the stitching. So the first thing I did was I went in and I looked at all the purples they have. And these are the 3 purples that they offer in 4-ply board. And then what you can do is as you click them, it'll show you what it looks like with your piece. So that's way too purple there. And then this one on my monitor is reading as really, really pink. So I ended up going with this raspberry board, which is kind of like a brown purple, which I think will coordinate very nicely with the design. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna choose how we want our mat to be cut. And so the default is like a 3-inch border around all sizes of the piece, but I tend to like to go with a little bit of a smaller border. You can go as small as 1 inch, like that, or you can go as wide as 9 inches, which, can you imagine how giant this frame would be? says here the frame is like 30 inches square. That's crazy. So I am going to go in between. I'm going to kind of go halfway. I decided for my piece, I want a 1.5 inch frame. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. The next thing you can do is you can choose what kind of acrylic you want. And as you make choices, it will change the price, the total price of the frame. I usually go with a UV acrylic, you know, to protect my fabric from the sunlight. But this is a new product. They have a UV non-glare acrylic, and I've decided that I want to try that. There is only like a $6 difference in price between the two colors or two kinds of acrylic. And I frequently want to take a picture of, you know, a piece that I've framed, and then I can't actually see the piece because of the glare. And so let's try non-glare and see if that makes a difference. And then you have the option to have your frame shipped unjoined. I assume that you would save shipping that way, or there might be some sort of construction technique you need to do. I always just have it shipped like already put together. And then the last piece you have is the mounting board. So this is the board that goes on the back of your finished piece, and then protects your piece from the hanging hardware. I usually go with an archival mounting board, and I usually just choose white. They make black too, but I just, you know, it doesn't matter. And these cost like $3. It's not a big deal. So once you have that, you need to review all of the choices you've made, double check it, double check those measurements, and then this is what it's going to look like. And then you can go ahead and add it to cart. If you decide you want to like play around with different frames, you can do that. You can save the like measurements and then just change the frames out. But this is what I ended up getting. And so, you know, I'm not ashamed to say this was about $125, plus there was a little shipping. So it's like maybe $140 to get this done. I do think that's comparable to what you would find at a frame shop, just based on like my very limited experience. And I like these kits, and I like being able to control my own finish. Like if I make a mistake, it's my mistake. I didn't send it to someone and then have someone like glue it wrong or ruin it. And so that's kind of why I choose to go with these kinds of frames. So anyway, I can't wait to show it to you when it's done. I can't believe it's coming tomorrow. I'm very excited. So I haven't turned the lights on in this room because I don't want there to be a lot of glare, but I wanted to show you, this is a frame that I have done using that American Frame website. This piece is something that I finished in 2022. It's called The River by Modern Folk Embroidery, and it was part of a Black Needle Society box, and the floss itself also came from that box. It was a one-off by Forbidden Fiber Company, and she had dyed enough to make this piece because this required more than 8 yards of floss. So I did the same thing. I went ahead and did a single mat in kind of a teal that matches or coordinates with the floss, and then just a standard white frame. So I have another one right here, which is like a vintage crewel that I've put in a shadow box frame that I just got from Michael's, so I wouldn't wreck the crewel finishing. And then I got this big empty space next to my bedroom window, and that is where Huckleberry Farm is going to go. So I thought I'd get some stitches in. I just finished filming that little bit where I showed you how to order the frame, and then my husband came home and we had lunch together, and that was really nice because that's probably one of the only one-on-one times I get with him outside of like after the kids go to bed. But now that the kids are pretty much both teenagers, they never go to bed. And so I'm really happy that we have these lunches together. He helped me set the camera up because I wanted to show you what I was stitching on right now. And today I am working on the Arctic Animals Stitch Along, which is hosted by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. This stitch along just started, so guess what? I am not behind yet. I am working on Clue 1, which features 2 Arctic animals, and I have a lot of the big parts kind of filled in. And so it's all going to be about filling in those little details, which is my favorite part of stitching. I usually stitch with hoops. I like a 6-inch or a 7-inch hoop, like what you see here. I have a lot of them, and I don't, color match or anything. That's just, you get what you get. But I find it's really comfortable to set the bottom edge of the hoop on either my stomach or on, a table edge, and just kind of let that kind of hold the weight of the project. And then I can just use my one hand to hold the hoop up at the right angle, and then I use my other hand to stitch. Even though my project is in a hoop, I like to stitch with what I believe is called the sewing method. And that is I am dipping my needle down and then up in one fluid motion, like you see here. And I find that, especially with big blocks of color, like what I'm working on right now in this clip, that I get a lot done in a very short amount of time. But I don't want to have too much tension. Oops, I just tipped the camera. Let's fix that. There you go. So I really am enjoying trying to give myself a little bit of time that's uninterrupted for stitching every day, even if it's as little as 15 minutes. There are so many things that you can choose to be interrupted by, like the dishes that are in the sink or the laundry that needs to go into the dryer that's sitting in the washer. And then, people that want your attention, or maybe your phone wants your attention because you got a buzz from like a message or like an Instagram post or whatever. I want, when I'm doing my stitching, to be more intentional about concentrating just on the stitching. It's really a comfortable feeling to kind of just get in that zone. Feel like you're just like there and you're getting a little piece accomplished every day. And then after however many days, you've gotten a whole thing done. You've got a record of all that fun you had. I say this as I watch myself with this tangle I got. I don't ever cut the tags off the fabric until I'm done with the project because sometimes I forget what the name of the fabric is, and I do like to know that. So I just hope that you also are intentional in your stitching and that you have a lot of fun with it too. There's so many different ways to stitch. I know a lot of people like to stitch, like two-handed, where they'll use a stand to hold their hoop, and then they put one hand on the back and one hand on the front and kind of pull the needle back and forth like that. I really admire the coordination. I feel like you would have to just have some really good hand-eye coordination to do that, because it doesn't make sense to me, like as far as like repetitive motion, motion memory, that's the word I was looking for, goes. So in a couple of minutes, I am going to start working on some StitchCon prep. In exactly a week, I will be at StitchCon, and I'm very excited. I'm a little anxious because that's how I get every time I go on a trip. Even that trip I just went to visit my mom for like a day and a half. I hate packing. I always worry I'm going to forget something, even though I have a checklist, and I always check the checklist. I think that's like the biggest indicator that I am really type A as a personality. But I really have been having a lot of fun thinking about the things that I want to do during StitchCon. For one, I definitely want to stitch, and it is nice to have a special project when you go to a retreat, because that in a way kind of becomes the souvenir from the retreat. You'll remember when you look at that on the wall and you say, I started that at StitchCon 2024. And so I definitely have a new project or two in mind that I'm going to bring with me. I also have a little bit of a shopping list. When I was looking at my patterns, I thought of some patterns that I would really like to purchase, and I have not purchased them because I'm hoping that I'll find them at Keepsakes, which is the shop that hosts StitchCon, that I'm interested in seeing. I really like the people that work there, like Barbara, the owner, and Steph works there from Pam and Steph, and there's a woman named Susan. I met them all about a year and a half ago when I went to Stitch Away, which is a winter retreat that was a lot of fun. Okay, let's start packing some projects for StitchCon. Now, I already know I will not be taking the Arctic Animal Sal with me because I expect I'll finish the clue probably over the weekend and I won't have anything to work on because the new clue doesn't come out. But I do have a couple new projects that I've purchased, specifically for this. The first one I talked about in my last video. It's Skipjack Sampler by Earthen Design. There it is. And I went ahead and got the called for flosses from Forbidden Fiber Company. And then I'm using my Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers Club fabric from last month. This is a 28 count fabric. So I've got fabric, floss, pattern, and then I just need to add a hoop, a pair of scissors, some needles, and a needle minder. And that is a kit. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it in this mermaid project bag that I actually just had Under the Sea in. This was made by Tiffany of Black Cat X Stitchery, and I really like it. But I figure under the sea and kind of nautical thing going on. So there's new project number 1. Get that out of the way. So new project number 2, I'm actually waiting in the mail for, and it's something I just ordered, but I've got some of the stuff ready to go. So you might have remembered that I recently completed Spring Folk by Hands On Design, and here's the pattern. So I can go ahead and put the pattern in my binder, but what I have is I have the fabric for the remaining folk pieces, because they're going to be one for every season, and then this pearl cotton is used for all 4. So I've got fabric, and then I ordered the pattern for Summer Folk, and it's supposed to arrive on Monday or Tuesday, so I'll add that to this kit too. I went through my flosses, both the big floss tote that I use, and then my master set of DMCs, and these are all the called for flosses for the Summer Folk. And then I've got scissors, needles, needle minder, poop, and that's another set. I'm going to go ahead and just use this pouch that I have from Stitch Supply Company. I like these. If you buy like a fat quarter set for quilting, a lot of times they'll arrive mailed in this. And this is cool. It's like a vinyl. I don't know if it's waterproof, but it feels heavy duty. And so this is a really good travel bag. So let's bag this stuff up. Okay, this is actually a pretty big piece of fabric. This is Driftwood by Fabrics by Stephanie. So I'm just gonna cut what I need for the folk pattern. And it's just about like a skinny quarter yard. And so I'll have about a half a yard remaining. So one for the winter folk when that comes out, because I already did autumn folk last year at the Chantel's 141 Pep Rally retreat. And then I'll have one more skinny quarter left. And I'm actually thinking I might use that for some of the Heart and Hand needle art tiny towns. Specifically, Anytown, Tiny Town, that's hard to say. And more Anytown, Tiny Town, because I kind of wanted to make them real long, mega city, like back to back. And so I'm gonna need a long and skinny piece. So let's pack this up. Why, hello again. You might have noticed my outfit change. That's because I'm filming this on the following day. Today is Friday and it's the last day of school. And I have Kleenex in my pocket because I've already cried twice, because I get that way every time there's the last day of school. So yesterday I ended filming with showing you some of the projects that I was kitting up that would be new starts for StitchCon. And today I wanted to show you a couple whips that I also plan to bring. I think picking out what you're going to stitch for StitchCon is part of the fun. There are 4 days, and so I think that 4 projects makes a lot of sense. So let me show you what I picked out. The first one I thought of particularly because I think it'll be fun to stitch. And this is, I should have gotten my cutting board. This is Night Walked Down, and the designer is the Blue Flower. This is stitched on 28 count fabric dyed by Under the Sea Fabrics in the color Enchanted Forest. This is also kind of an opalescent fabric. Can you see the little sparkles? Just like Edward Cullen. So I chose this because I think it's just a really, really beautiful piece. But it has a very like detailed, chunky border. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see. You can see how like thick that border is, and there's multiple colors that kind of blend in together, and this is just an excellent border for stitching and chatting. You know, it's kind of something that like at home I think I get kind of bored, you know, but when I'm with a bunch of people I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I don't really have much left to do on this piece. I would say I'm probably easily 2/3 done. I'm not gonna finish it at StitchCon, but if I can get a couple more stitches in, maybe this could be a focus piece sometime this summer, and I will finish it and then have to frame it or something. So now the other piece that I'm choosing, I've decided to use my app that I like to use to choose projects to figure this one out. I use an app called Tiny Decision. I'm going to put a little logo right there. And how that works is you can build a wheel and then spin the wheel of fortune style. You can put I think up to 100 things on the same wheel, which I think is awesome. Now, what I did was when I reorganized, I made sure that all of the whips I have in my whip basket are on this wheel. And then anytime I finish a whip, like I just did with Under the Sea, I will, take it off the wheel and, consider it well done. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel. I'm going to go ahead and put it right in here. I already know the answer, but so what I do is I just mash that little spin button as many times as I kind of feel, like randomly. And the one that came up is this one. This is a design called We Santa 2023. And this is something I started last year, and I got about a third of it done. So I've got these beautiful kind of quilt-like flowers. And then this is going to be Santa's jacket. So Santa's right here. And then there's more quilt flowers here. I'm stitching this on a grab bag piece of fabric. It looks like it's a 32 count to me. This is something I got from Color and Cotton, so it doesn't have like a color name. Every so often, Color and Cotton will have just grab bags of surprise fabrics, and I think that's a really good way to build your fabric stash if you need to. This fabric is really pretty, and I'm gonna have enough of it left that I think I can probably make, something else that will look nice on a neutral color. So the other thing I'm really excited about this particular project is that it is small, and so I have a good chance of maybe finishing it, and that'll be a lot of fun. So I, like to have a little souvenir, and I will always remember, wow, I finished this piece at this place. And so that's an exciting thing for me. My cat is being naughty. I have a couple enamel bowls on top of my bookcase, and she is rubbing against them and making them ring. Can you hear that? I don't like that, and so I am going to pause the video so I can go ahead and shoo her away. Okay, I've sufficiently bribed her, and now my bowls are no longer being dinged, so sorry about that. So I was talking about whips and how excited I was, that I have that all sorted. So 2 works in progress and 2 new starts. That should be a lot of fun this upcoming weekend. So as far as other stuff that I want to make sure I have with me for the retreat, I have a little wooden stand that I use for my patterns to hold them up so that I am not doing this all the time. And so I'll bring that for my table. I also have an iPad that I sometimes use for digital patterns, and I'll bring that. And then, just other kind of minor little things that I can tuck into my bag, so that I have them just in case. I thought it might be a good idea to have some nail clippers in case I snag a fingernail. It might also be good to have some chapstick, maybe some breath mints, things, just, little tiny hygiene things that I can tuck in and carry with me to the convention center. Now, my understanding is that the convention center does not allow food and drink. And so I will probably purchase a couple snacks just to have in the hotel room, because some people are coffee people, little things of the Starbucks Frappuccinos, just something I can have if I don't want to go to a restaurant, which would be nice. However, I have a reusable water bottle that I think I'm going to go ahead and just tuck into my stitching bag empty. So I can use it if there's a drinking fountain, just to fill it, drink, and then dump out what I don't drink. Or maybe I'll find out when I get there that they allow water bottles, and then I'll have a water bottle for the stitching. I would think that would be okay, but I won't know, and I'm going to follow the rules. And so I'll bring it empty and see if that helps. So, well, I've got about an hour until it's time to pick up the kids. I'm going to cut the video right now, but later today, I'm getting some exciting mail. I'm getting 2 things today that I'm excited about. Thing 1 is I'm getting the frame for that Huckleberry Farm piece, which I can't believe it came so quickly. I only ordered it 2 days ago. So I will film kind of unboxing that and opening it up and putting that whole thing together. And then the other thing I'm getting is a little surprise I had made to give to other people at StitchCon. And it's just a little token thing. When you go to retreats, a lot of times people are super generous and nice. Some people will bring floss drops, maybe they had business cards printed out that you can use as a floss drop, and then you remember you met that person. Other people will bring, you know, like things they made. Like I saw in the StitchCon Facebook group, someone is making project bags for their table, which I think is super nice and generous. I've made things in the past. I'll show you what I made for my first retreat. I made little needle books that look like this. So they're tied together by yarn because I didn't want to sew all those little snaps. And then on the inside is like a couple little felt pages and you can stick your needles in, kind of like I did that. So the first retreat I ever went to was that Steel City Stitchers retreat, and there were like 150 guests. So I made 150 of these, and that was a lot of fun. And then for another retreat, you know, another Steel City Stitchers retreat, I ended up making another batch of them because that first Steel City Stitchers retreat happened with some inopportune weather. There was like a big storm and a lot of people's flights got canceled. And so even though there were 150 people invited, I think probably only closer to 100 people came. And so I figured a lot of those people that missed out the year before might like a needle book. And so I did it a second time. And that time there were like 250 people. And so here's the one I made that year. Now, I just don't have it in me to make that many needle books. I've been so busy with like all the other stuff that I've got going on, and I've been busy stitching. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up ordering something that I don't want to spoil, but it's arriving today. And if all goes to plan, that'll be a fun thing to have, you know, just to give to other people. So keeping my fingers crossed, it all works out. I'm really surprised it came today because it was not expected to be shipped until next week. So I like to ride those deadlines, I guess. So anyway, you know, I'm thinking that as the school year ends and summer begins, I'm going to probably have less time to do long video cuts. And so I'm kind of playing around with kind of more of a vloggy style, I guess you could say, where I'm just kind of maybe filming little bits that I'll kind of cobble together little by little. It's great because I don't know how to edit videos. I am learning everything kind of on the fly with my video editing software. And so, you know, eventually, you know, if I'm really interested in it, it'll get good. Like I'll put music and, you know, intros and outros. But for now, it's just kind of another aspect of my hobby that I'm enjoying, learning how to use a computer in a different way. So anyway, I'll see you in a little bit. Hey, look what arrived. Are you ready to put together this frame with me? So at first I was a little concerned because the box was a lot bigger than the frame I thought I'd ordered. But then I saw inside that it's like a little cushion inside the box to keep it all safe. So after a little snip, we can start unpacking. The first thing we have is the hardware pack, and that's attached to a piece of cardboard, and inside that cardboard sleeve is the mat board. And then the frame, the acrylic glazing, and the mounting board are all packaged together and bubble wrapped. So once I get all of the plastic peeled off of the acrylic and I open the mat, I can start putting this together. First thing I did was I got my cross-stitch piece out and I double checked to see if I liked the matte color, and I did. Isn't it pretty? So then it's just a matter of inserting the mat, and there are these little clips on the edges that I have not seen before. That's something that maybe they started doing recently, and so it got a little snagged because the clip was bent. But once I bent it back the right way, everything fit. So once that's all settled, then I can put the cross-stitch piece on top. One last look to make sure there isn't any dust or lint on it. And then the mounting board goes on the back. Now, I was really surprised because I thought that there wouldn't be enough room, but I was able to use those little clips to clip everything back together. Now, the hardware kit that came with the package did have little spring clips too that I could mount on the back if I felt like I needed additional support. But the cross stitch, as it like just a piece, an art piece, I guess, is not very heavy, and neither is the acrylic. And so I think those little clips are going to hold it all together. I will save them though in case I change my mind. The hardware pack also includes picture framing wire and then 2 little picture framing eyes that'll go on each side of the frame. And I haven't done that part yet, but I will probably right before I hang it up, I guess. So, are you ready to see how it looks? Isn't it great? I'm really excited to put it up on the wall. So, I'm glad I ordered this frame. I think it looks really, 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 really nice, and I'm very, very happy. Happy Saturday. So today's the first day officially of summer vacation, and unfortunately my husband has hurt his knee, and so we've been just kind of laying low. I did take my daughter though to an art fair this morning, and we went and got groceries, and so now I'm back home. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I want to get these off my table before I go to StitchCon, so I'm going to finish them. I have prepped some lacing boards for both pieces, and so for the National Park Service, I'm going to lace it on this board, and I'm going to do a pom-pom trim. I found this like brown trim that I think would look really nice. And then I ordered a bender board from Chantel's 141 Design Company that when it arrives, I will attach this finished lace piece to. So today I'll do the lacing and add the trim, and then I'll set it aside. For under the sea, I also have a lacing board that I cut and I checked to make sure it fit the frame that I purchased from Michael's. And so that's just going to be another straightforward lacing. Now, since this is going in a frame, I'm not using quilt batting for this piece. This one, because it's going to be kind of puffy, I have a very small scrap of quilt batting. So we'll make a little sandwich there. So thinking about that National Parks piece, I wanted to look at other options. And the Chantel's 141 Design Company always has some really cool boards. I like this one, and when I looked at the measurements of the tall size, I do think that that will work with the size of the piece that I'm going to finish. It's got a nice proportion. So I'm going to go ahead and order this, and then we'll use this to finish up the National Park's birthday. And then I can put it on my table for like a summer seasonal camping display. So win, win, win. Okay, so this one's laced up. This is a very standard thing that I do pretty much every time I lace something to a piece of mat board. I don't usually go with tight margins like this, but I guess I kind of was like thinking to myself about how I want it to fit onto that bender board without overlapping too much. And so I kind of like it because the companion piece that I'll eventually stitch also has kind of a tight margin because of user error, I guess. And so they'll go together pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack the pom-pom trim on, and I like to use a sewing method where I use a hem stitch and just stitch it along the borders. I don't really like to use glue on these pieces until it's like the last step, just because I'm a nervous glue person. So for bigger pieces like under the sea, I find it's better to start the lacing from the center rather than one side, because I'm going to use multiple lengths of thread, because otherwise the thread would be crazy long. And also because when you look on the front, you want to make sure that these borders don't like skew over like that way. That's extreme, but you know, like just to kind of prevent warping as you're pulling. So start from the center and work your way to the corners. So I just went this way, and now I'm going to start a new thread and go that way. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that laced up. So now here's the moment of truth. Let's pop it in the frame. Well, it went in easily enough. Moment of truth. Ta-da! Yeah, I like it. I think that this is a good compromise. You know, I think that, yeah, a custom frame would have looked, you know, phenomenal, but this looks pretty darn good. And I'm not, you know, closing the door completely on refinishing it later. I think though that you got to really like pick and choose which pieces you're going to really splurge on. And the piece that took me like over 100 hours to stitch versus the piece that took me like 30 hours to stitch, you know, I guess that's my metric. So, okay, so I was going to pack my bag. It is now Sunday, by the way. It's just been a whole weekend, but Audrey is sleeping on it, so I will have to pack it later. I do want to note though that this is a bag that I received from the Black Needle Society, and so a lot of people have the same bag. So I have a luggage tag on it with my phone number and my name on it in case they get mixed up. So here's what I'm going to put in the bag. So first off, I have my new projects. I have Summer Folk. Hopefully that pattern comes back tomorrow. Skipjack sampler. And then I have my whip. This is Wee Santa 2013. And this is Night Walked Down. And now I have this pouch that I made, and I'm going to fill it with a couple things. So I've got some nail scissors, a pen in case I need to write something down, some breath mints I stole from my daughter in case I eat something kind of garlicky. This little tin has heel blister things, but I threw a bunch of Band-Aids in it just in case. And then this is kind of silly, but I made a shopping list. These are some patterns that if I find these when I'm at Keepsakes, I'd like to pick these up. I am going to try really hard not to buy any fabric this time around unless it's very specifically for one of these projects that are on this list, because I have a lot of fabric. So there's that pouch. I have my empty water bottle that I can fill with water while I'm on the road. This pouch right here has my wooden easel that I use, you know, to hold my paper patterns up. And then I read online, or I didn't read online, I saw online that a lot of people also knit, and I like to knit. And so I'll show you what I picked out. So this is my iPad. Oh goodness, what a mess. So I'm gonna knit this sock. This is a sock by Helen Stewart, Curious Handmade. And I'm going to use this yarn, which I just wound into a ball. I did not get my yarn cake maker out because I couldn't be fussed. But this is Forbidden Fiber yarn, and it was a pre-order I did actually about a year ago. It's Sagittarius, which is my sign, and so that's kind of fun. I like to knit with double point needles, so I'll just bring this whole little zip pouch, and I can put my knitting project in this pouch right here. And then the last thing I found these are two like kits that I have that I don't remember why I have them. And so I'm gonna bring them and see if maybe someone who's like a table mate or something wants something like this. Hey again, here's my last outfit change because it is now Sunday and I am on day like 4 of making this video. I don't know how long it'll even be after I kind of sew all the little clips together, but I wanted to wrap things up. I accomplished a lot over the last couple days. First off, my cat moved, and so I was able to, you know, pack my StitchCon bag. It's all ready to go. The only thing that I have to put in it is my iPad, which I'm going to continue to use up until basically the time that it's time to go, but it's on my list, so I don't forget it. I also fully finished 2.5 projects. So I have my FFN, my finished for now, which is this one, the National Park's Birthday. And I've ordered a new bender board from Chantel's 141 Design Company. And when that arrives, I will apply this to the bender board, probably paint the bender board, and then, yeah, maybe add like a little bow embellishment on top. So super cute. And then I purchased an 11 by 14 frame from Michael's right here for Under the Sea. So now all I have to do is find where to put it on the wall. I'm happy with how it turned out. I was really nervous that there were going to be too wide of margins between the edge of the design and the border of the frame without a mat, but I think it looks great. And if I decide later to splurge on a fancy frame, that's an easy fix. And then here's the last piece. And this is the one I'm most excited about that I'm going to go frame the second I get out of here. So hold on, there's a little speck of dust I want to get off of here first. And here she is. Huckleberry Farm, all framed and ready to go. The only thing I have to do is put the hanging hardware on the back. I have to say, I like the UV non-glare acrylic. I definitely see a difference between the other piece that I just showed you and this, as far as ease of seeing the design through the glazing. It's not like perfect, like invisible, but it's really good. The colors seem to be really true. I am just so happy to get this on the wall and Under the Sea and have a new cross stitch piece ready to go. And I just feel ready. You know, it feels good to get these big projects out of your way right before you go on a trip. So it's like kind of my version of cleaning my desktop. So anyway, thanks for following along with me today. If you liked this video, I would love it if you left a comment down below with what you thought was cool. You know, liking it always gives me a little flutter in my heart too. So if you're coming to StitchCon Weekend A, please come meet me. I've got a little tiny little tidbit treat that I'd be happy to give to you. And I want to meet as many people as I can, because I think the bigger the Stitchy friend group, the more fun we have. So I will be back in a couple weeks. You know, I'll probably have like a little StitchCon recap, and you know, but that's far off in the horizon, and I don't even know what projects I'll be working on between now and then. So anyway, thanks again for staying with me, and we'll see you next time, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.